Welcome back to Up Front and our discussion about whether guns should be allowed in college campus buildings. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark Jr., an outspoken advocate for concealed carry, recently said on a national news program that gun-free zones have become killing fields. And Sheriff Clark joins us now on Up Front to talk about that and this proposal that we have now here in Wisconsin that says, you know, campus carry should be part of the concealed carry law. How do you feel about that, Sheriff?
Very strongly that it should be. Look, I'm tired of the law-abiding citizen with a carry concealed license being labeled as an existential threat. Okay? A criminal with a gun is an existential threat. A mass murderer who comes onto a college campus, a school, a church, where nobody else is armed, a gun-free zone supposedly, is a threat. These individuals don't come onto these scenes and look at that sign and go, oh, no guns here, I think I'll go someplace else. I think, there's no research yet to support this, I think these sites are chosen because these individuals know a long period of time will go on for them to commit mass carnage before someone with a gun shows up to stop them.
You can see, though, that no evidence right now that supports that, but that's your belief as a law enforcement person.
It's a trend right now, and so I'm sure there'll be some research done on that. But here's another thing. In that situation in Oregon, where the guy lined people up, and one by one, took them out, and I'm not asking anybody to, in that situation, to take control of the scene with their firearm, but they should be allowed to defend themselves. We're talking about a constitutional freedom here, and you shouldn't have to check that at the schoolroom door.
Chief Reisling said one of her concerns is that on a college campus, you obviously have younger folks. Some of them may not be the most mature. Some of them, at times, may drink too much. That you have these different factors there that can make that a volatile situation if you have firearms present in a dorm, for instance, in a classroom, for instance. What do you say about that?
Well, some of the law covers that because if you're consuming too much alcohol, you can't be armed anyway. First of all, for freshmen and sophomores, 18, 19-year-olds, they're prohibited by law from owning a firearm. You have to be 21. I would like to think that as we get into junior and seniors, people are starting to mature more. But we give a lot of constitutional freedoms to people who don't handle it responsibly and are immature, like voting. We still allow them to do that. And so I'm always for expanding constitutional freedoms and liberties, not restricting them.
So in your opinion, this is a discussion we need to have. It's an important discussion? Am I reading it right?
Right, because to me, it's allowing people in these situations, and I met a rape victim from the University of Nevada who was a CCL permit holder, who was attending class, was brutally raped at gunpoint in a gun-free zone on the University of Nevada. She left her gun at home because it's a gun-free zone. She should not have had taken away from her her ability to defend herself. She was about 50 yards, I hear, from the campus police. It took the police in Oregon 5 minutes to get there. That's a quick response, but you know how many people were already killed and maimed in the carnage that can happen in 5 minutes? Ed Flynn said recently he could not guarantee a quick response to 911. It's the first time he's ever been honest about the 911 system, the first time he's ever told the truth. When seconds matter, the police are minutes away.
Sheriff, have you responded to something else that was said? Well, you've got the faculty over in Madison who opposes this, student groups oppose it. You've talked a lot about protecting the rights of the individual, but what about the other folks who don't seem to want this to happen on their college campuses?
That's fine. Then they don't have to go armed. They don't have to carry a gun, okay? They cannot decide what constitutional freedoms other people can have. These are individual rights, Mike, and you know that. So if they don't want it, fine, but their thoughts on constitutional freedoms shouldn't then carry over to somebody else.
I want to spend just a couple of minutes here. You've been in the news this week. You're never shy about saying what you think, and you were on Fox News recently, and you made a comment as part of a larger discussion, and you said, and I'm quoting now, "There is no police brutality in America. We ended that in the 60s. A few days have passed. You stand by that choice of words? Would you amend that choice of words?
Not for 1 second. Matter of fact, I'll double down right here. Not as a practice, not as a custom, not as a culture, not as an institution. Is police brutality accepted in the United States anymore? We did get rid of that in the 60s.
But does
We're
it
more
happen?
professional.
It's not accepted, but does it
We're
happen?
talking about some individual cases of police misconduct. Fine. To me, and I looked it up, the definition of brutality, savage physical violence. That applies to groups like ISIS. That applies to what Planned Parenthood was doing, sucking fetuses out of the womb, cutting up body parts and selling them on the open market. That is savage physical violence. The police do not engage in that activity. What's happening here is that word is being used
brutality.
as police brutality is being used interchanged with police use of force. There are people from the Black Lives Matter movement who think that Mike Brown was police brutality. No, it wasn't. It was self-defense. They seem to think that all of these cases of police use of force that don't look good. Using force is ugly. It's never pretty. And they call them all police brutality. No, let's call this stuff what it is. We have individual cases of police misconduct, like the Walter Scott in South Carolina. That's as
Shot in the back by a police officer.
ugly a thing as I have ever seen. No police officer condones that. But this group then takes that incident and paints and indicts this entire policing profession as being brutal. No, it does not exist. Not in the fashion that they're calling it.
There's been a fair amount of discussion recently about what some of these videotaped incidents have meant for policing in America today. And some law enforcement people say they think there's a connection between higher crime rates in certain cities and what we've seen in terms of video. Do you share that opinion? Do you think that there's a correlation?
There is a correlation. That'll be shown as these things are studied. This has been a very destructive time in America. In our urban centers, good law-abiding black people that are the victims of black on black crime, that the American police officer is going down into. Nobody else is doing it. None of these blowhard politicians, none of these blowhard racialists are going down there. It's the American police officer to protect and give quality of life to good law-abiding black people. When the police back off, like they have, they're second-guessing themselves now, it's going to be very ugly for law-abiding people because of that.
Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke, Jr., appreciate you being on the program. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike.
And you've heard the arguments. What do you think? Should concealed carry be allowed on all parts of Wisconsin college campuses? Tell us by liking and sharing up front on Facebook. Paul Ryan has become the youngest and first House Speaker from Wisconsin. How long will the honeymoon last? That's when Up Front continues.